Good evening and welcome to the study session for the Vancouver School Board on October 22nd. I will start with roll call. Director Barrows,
Here.
Director Smith,
Here.
and I am here, and Director Sprawl has a family emergency that she is taking care of, and Director Zavala is unexpectedly called away. So we do have quorum, and they will take a look at it after we record it. So welcome, everyone. And I'm turning it over to you, Dr. Snell.
Thank you, Director Decker. Welcome, everyone. This is our study session in October. It's typically one of our larger study sessions in terms of content as we start to dig into the district goals for the year and start to be able to monitor our progress towards the goals that you have established for us as a board. So I do have a superintendent's report, but it's more just walking you through the agenda this evening, kind of preparing you for the opportunities that we have. First off, we're going to have a staff advisory report. We had our first staff advisory meeting in October. We have new co-chairs that are leading that work. One of those, Max, will present this evening alongside of Ro, who is a new staff member into the role as well. So we're excited and grateful for them to be here and give us an update on the work that's happening there. We have Chris and Brian with us tonight to talk about the dashboard launch. Tons of time and energies went into that, a lot of direction from the board over the last year and a half. Really, as we were approving the strategic plan report, and launching that last fall, we were working alongside of looking at other districts' dashboards and how they were monitoring progress on their strategic plan and tried to take the best of what we could find and put it into action here. So we're really excited to share that with you this evening. Our student advisory report is tentatively third on the agenda, but one of our student advisors is competing in a district cross-country meet out of Louisville Park, I think is where that's at today. And so we're gonna push them in wherever they start to show up. But we have Christian and Sam from Hudson's Bay and VSAA to give you an update on the work that they're doing. And then we'll get into some specific goal areas within the strategic plan. And so all three of the goal areas are in the student-centered experience part of the plan. So we have Elizabeth Mikaeli to share a little about the work related to attendance. We have Janelle Ephraim sharing about the work with student discipline and exclusion from school and what's happening with that data. And then finally, we have Lucy sharing about multilingual learning and some of the work that's going on there. So it's a pretty full agenda tonight. We have tried to set it up so it's about a 10 to 15-minute presentation in our goal areas, and then opportunities for the board to ask for us to go deeper or clarify or whatever it is that you want as we work through the agenda as a whole. So any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and drive the slides then here. I'll keep it moving. And we do have our first report of the evening, and this is the staff advisory report. And hopefully Max and Ro are available and they can come on camera and share a little about the work that's been happening with staff advisory.
I can go ahead. So at the meeting, we examined cell phone survey data gathered by our students, staff, and families. And we did this to make sure that the needs and perspectives of all our stakeholders were taken into consideration and addressed as we contemplate a district-wide policy. One thing that we did find interesting was the discrepancy between how much our students reported using cell phones during the school day and how much our families reported their students using the cell phones during the school days. So for example, 37% of families reported that their students were not using cell phones at all during the school day. And 47% of our students self-reported that they use it sometimes to all the time during the school day. So we thought that was a little bit funny. Our family's biggest concern about taking away cell phones were how to contact their students in case of an emergency. And our staff really advocated for consistency among the district and for clear consequences when there is a policy violation. So in the meeting, we also discussed pros and cons, and we also discussed the need to have staff buy-in for policy implementation.
Thanks, Ro.
Thank you.
Any questions from directors about, you're familiar with the data. You also had a chance to look at that. I know we had staff advisory members in table groups explore the data a little bit individually and then have conversations at their table group. And then we collected their input as well that I know that you've had a chance to look at, as possible next steps from the staff advisory. Similar kind of to data protocols we've used in the past with staff advisory to try to allow them an opportunity to really explore the data together. And those conversations, as you know, as you're looking at data collectively and you're able to talk and process and ask, we think are pretty valuable. So I'll see if there's any questions from directors about that.
I would just be curious about ideas, because I mean, you talked about like, the need for consistency and clear consequences. Were there, I mean, I know there's kind of a continuum of like extreme in terms of like no cell phones at all versus like cell phones in your backpack versus, like having a place that you put them in the classroom. Like, were there kind of ideas of like what staff felt like would be, enforceable and manageable within a classroom setting?
So someone did bring up being able to use cell phones during passing time or lunch. And some ideas were, maybe using it in a paper bag, putting the cell phone in the bag, or I know at Skyview High School, they're looking at making group referrals for technology addictions. So that was just an idea that was brought up, and they're going to try it in the high school. Alki also has a one-time warning. Second time you get, I also think it's like a referral to a group. So those are just ideas that were being discussed
And
of things that have worked in different schools.
Sorry to interrupt, bro. And if I could add, I think one thing that we noticed is that we're still trying to understand the issue at hand. Somebody brought up a really important point that there's so many students who watch their blood sugar levels, or diabetic students, with their phone. And so outright bans would be, a huge obstacle for those students' well-being. And additionally, we don't want every student with a phone out to be known to have diabetes as well. So there's going to be some very interesting nuance. And I think once we get to the point that we can understand the question more clearly, there will be some really interesting ideas that come out.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good point too, because we've talked about as a board, even, students who use their phones for translation, students who English isn't their first language, so they use that, or even, nowadays with, technology, it's like you can take a picture of something that the teacher puts up on the board versus having to take notes. Like there's just, we use technology, it's not all bad. And so I think that balance, I mean, that's kind of what we've wrestled with. And I think you bring up a good point, Max, of what the actual problem is that we want to solve versus just, a policy that bans it. I think that's kind of what we're wrestling with, is what is the best kind of path forward. So yeah, I appreciate your input.
And you got a chance to meet Max there, who's stepped into the co-chair role. This is our third year of the staff advisory, and Max served on the advisory last year. And the co-chair role is an elected position. And so it's putting yourself out there with your colleagues to say, like, I'm willing to put in the time and represent the larger staff advisory body. And just invite you, Max, to maybe speak a little about this, what we did in the last staff advisory beyond the cell phone report, but also your decision to become a leader with this work.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And I apologize, my camera's not on. I've had a traffic nightmare getting home today. One thing I really enjoyed about the staff advisory team when we had our first meeting this year, I'm a restorative justice coach for the district, and so community is one of the most important pieces of any gathering for me, particularly in a place where we have people from so many different labor groups and people just not knowing each other so well. And so we did start with like one of my favorites, which is a name that tune game where we put people into teams and then played classical versions of popular songs and see who could recognize them. And you know, I do think it sort of helped quicken the pace of community. We like to say that we move at the speed of trust, and so I think that trust has to be earned sometimes through silly games and sometimes through the hard work of thinking about the district together. And so far as what brought me into the interest of being a co-chair this year, I think it's wonderful that we have this group. It's just it's so nice to be with colleagues, particularly from a number of different unions, representing schools I haven't gotten to visit, and getting time to speak with folks who are doing really important work, but I just don't get that many opportunities to spend time with. Specifically last year, I had a great time, and I thought we did some really interesting, difficult work, particularly what was facing the district last year. And one thing that I noticed in talking to some folks, particularly among our classified staff, was that the various modalities to respond may have leaned a little bit towards those of us who have, you know, spoken publicly in front of 30 odd students many days in a given calendar year. And so we were interested in finding more opportunities for folks to share their voices without necessarily having to raise their hand and be called on and speak in front of a crowd of folks they may not know that well. So one thing I'm looking forward to before the end of this year is making sure that we're elevating all the voices of the people who are choosing to join us after a long school day, and make sure that if we've put forth all the effort of getting people into that room together, that we're also able to hear all those voices. So far, so good, I will say. And we're really looking forward to our next few meetings.
Thank you, Max.
Ro, can you? Oh, sorry. I was going to
No, I
say.
was just thinking, Max. Go ahead, Director Decker. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Ro, can you tell us a little bit about you?
So I'm a mental health therapist over at Skyview High School.
Okay. Oh, so you would be the one that they would be directed to for tech addictions. Yes.
So I am working with the team. Yes, I am.
Okay.
But we have an incredible staff that's going to be hosting that.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rose, also a valued parent in the community, has served as a PTA president. So she has a lot of different roles and perspectives that she's bringing to staff advisory. And I would say that's indicative of a lot of the staff advisory members. They're people that are really, they care a lot about the work and care about each other. It's a fun group to be in. Director Smith, you were able to join us last time. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add. That's one of the things new this year is we're trying to have you rotate through the meetings as well. So
yeah, I mean, I had the pleasure of joining for the first meeting of the year, and it was great. And I just want to praise Max because I think you did a great job just kind of setting the tone right from the beginning of the meeting and putting people at ease and creating a very comfortable environment for people. I know that it seemed like about half, maybe third to a half of the people who were there this was their first meeting too. They didn't serve last year, and it was not easily apparent who was new and who was returning. Like everybody was just very comfortable and very genuine in their desire to provide kind of meaningful feedback helpful information for the board. So I really appreciate you, Max. You did a great job, and it was wonderful to be able to be there and kind of see how it goes, but also just to be able to kind of show like the board is invested in the success of not just the staff advisory, but all of our advisory groups, and the information that we get from them, these reports are like just really, really helpful to the work that we do on the board. And so I'm looking forward to the next one. It was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Director Smith. Any final words, Max? Ro?
There's a lot more fun community building opportunities to come. So we will share those as they happen.
All right. Well, thank you both for being on here this evening. Our next meeting is in November. Amongst many other things, we are looking at the cell phone data again, but after lots of different groups and all of our staff have had the chance, we sent out an email yesterday to families and staff of here's what we heard so far. What are your thoughts about next steps? And so we'll process some of that information as we move forward. Another component of the staff advisory is staff wellness. And that's kind of a common theme as well, as just how do we support each other in the challenging work that we have. So each time too, we are going to try to share. And so you'll see the other co-chair, I think next time, Chris, and potentially another staff advisory member. So thank you, Ro, for stepping up and doing the first one. Yeah. All right. Okay, Director Decker, do you want me to keep us moving?
Please do, and thank you both, Ro and Max, so much.
Okay, the next part is related to, all of it is related to our strategic plan, but in particular, we're really keyed in on the progress monitoring part of the plan. I mean, that's something that we heard loud and clear is like, it's great to have a plan, but like, how do we know if we're making progress with it, right? And so the board did give us direction on some goal areas back in August and September. The goal areas are listed here. Tonight, you're going to hear a little bit more about attendance, discipline, and multilingual learners, and then we'll be working in the other ones over the course of the year, and sometimes we'll come back to them, and sometimes it might just be once, and then the updates will come in different form. We also know that within each of these, there's also like action-oriented steps in each of these three components of the strategic plan, the student-centered experience, staff, and community. And tonight we're focused primarily on the student-centered experience. But as you know, you can't do any of this work if you don't have goals in terms of supporting staff and bringing the community in as well. So tonight, we're pleased to preview the release of our dashboard. And so I'm going to turn it over to our curriculum instruction and assessment leads, Christian Oddie, who takes on the earlier learners, and Brian, who takes on our secondary learners. And they're going to walk you through kind of where we're at.
Thank you, Dr. Snell. My name is Brian Graham. I serve as the Director in Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for secondary schools. And I'll have the first slide, and then Chris will take a couple slides. So really pleased to join you here tonight and give you an update. Really, I guess this is the public launch for the VPS Data Dashboard. Do you mind going to the next slide, Dr. Snell? And so just to do a bit of a recap on why a data dashboard, and then Chris will take us into where do you find this? Where can the public access, and how we might use. So really our VPS data dashboard is an enhanced OSPI report card. Like we have elements from OSPI, but really have tailored it to highlight the VPS strategic plan and showcase indicators that align with the VPS vision of a graduate. And we've had a few different activities in the last, I guess, 6 months where we met with board members, met with members of cabinet and different departments to get feedback on what would be a good set of indicators to start with that would allow us to both establish goals and monitor progress. And so this data dashboard gives us a starting point for those indicators. The other neat part about it is that it's going to be dynamic, in that there's other indicators that we would like to be able to represent and may be curious about, that, hey, we would like to know more about X, Y, or Z, because it will really inform the progress that our students are making towards this vision. And so that dynamic attribute is a really exciting thing as we update data throughout the year. And something that really resonates, Chris and I have talked quite a bit about this, but just that the data dashboard has been created and is being updated by VPS staff. And that's something we're really proud of. And it has brought teams together. So we've collaborated really closely with our ITS team and some just lead creative members there. And also our communications team circling around, where we're looking really closely at the words that are chosen and trying to make the dashboard as accessible as possible to any members of our community that would like to access it. So Chris, I think that we're ready for the next slide for you to take over.
Yeah, what a nice little segue. So thank you, Brian. My name is Chris Giannotti. I am the director of CIA for pre-K5 through, or pre-K through 5th grade. And it really was a pleasure to work on this project and work with the school board about 6 months ago to start eliciting opinions about what should be on this and to make it help come to fruition. So as you see before you, this screenshot is of our VPS website, and hopefully for everyone on the screen, this looks familiar. I'm sure you've been there at least once, but in the black bar near the top, in order to access our data dashboard for VPS, you're going to actually hover over the About VPS. And if you're following along, I'll kind of go slowly. And when you hover over About VPS, in that second column, it says district data. And the third bullet down says performance data. And you want to click on the performance data. And that's going to take you to the next page. And we're actually going to go to the next slide. Thank you. And voila, this is the face of our public facing dashboard. There's a little bit of text above to provide a set for people who are new to the site about some of the indicators. But what you see is a screenshot of a very dynamic platform. And one of the pieces of information that we heard loud and clear from board members, from executive directors, from our superintendent was we wanted a way to showcase data that could be updated, but that could also have some additional features to go deeper, that it wasn't just a stagnant report. So on the left-hand column, you'll see that there are two green buttons. One says student progress, and those are all the indicators related to the student-centered experience for phase 1 of this dashboard. And then the staff data, that connects to some staff demographics, as well as information from the Upbeat survey that our staff takes annually. Additionally, on this landing page, if you hover over the 42% ELA math and attendance, as well as the indicators on the bottom, that will actually take you directly to that next page where you can see live data. But if you go to the next slide, Jeff. So what's great about all these functions? Again, this is another screenshot of the dashboard. But if you see on that left-hand side, it features data indicators that we are measuring throughout the school year that are highly correlated with our strategic plan goals. And in fact, this right here is a screenshot of some WIDA data, and I think that's going to be talked about later on today. The great thing about this platform and all of these sets of data is that visually it's very easy to read. Most information is represented in bar graphs, And most all of the features have the ability to be filtered down to school and grade level information, but also filtered down to service and groups. And that was a big request from our school board members. Again, we didn't want stagnant reports on the dashboard, although some of our indicators are directly imported and don't have that filtering ability. The reality is most of our data sets are, and you're able to disaggregate, and knowing our equity policy and our focus on student groups and belonging, that ability to disaggregate data and look deeply at data is really important to us. You'll also see above the very top, there is a gray bar kind of surrounding, and at the top of each of our data pages is a descriptor of what that data is about and why it's important. And we really tried to provide that scaffolding, not only for our community, but also for staff, so that we know the importance and the critical connections to our strategic plan. You'll also notice, well, hard to see on this screenshot, but there are dates within that gray bar of when some information is going to be updated. For example, we just completed our iReady window. It was extended by a week, and that information was just imported. It should come live tomorrow, I believe. Our panorama, our student survey data will, that window is open through the end of October. So in November, that information will be this year's data. So when you are looking at information, you want to be sure to check the date and check for updates. There's also an ability on here to be able, for several of the indicators, to go back and look at some historical data. And we hope to grow that even more. But as we built this platform within 6 months, our data team, we're just really proud to be able to release it to the public. Brian?
Thank you, Chris. And you'll probably hear me repeat a few things that Chris said so well. And I'm going to go over what are some ways that the dashboard might support monitoring the VPS goals that have been established. And I want to start by just recognizing the image here is around attendance. The previous image was around WIDA data and multilingual learner progress. And you're going to hear reports from both those departments and leaders tonight. So we wanted to highlight that that's part of the dashboard. So really how we can utilize the dashboard is really the ability to look at some historical trends and really like the idea around data that we can ask questions and be curious about it and go deeper with the questions that we ask and that we're curious about. We have the ability to update data throughout different points of the year, just like Chris said, which then would allow us to monitor what's the progress that we're making. The importance to be able to disaggregate data by different services and identifiers. And something that it just really fits in our system so well, you know, a piece that Jim Gray's leading with the collaborative team models, but for us to be curious and to really learn from each other, what's happening with teams and schools, where we're impacting outcomes, and that we can learn from each other and really celebrate that success. And that collaborative culture is such a powerful thing. So we're excited to share that launch tonight. And we know there's a lot of presentations, so we didn't set up a dive for you to go into, even though it's going to be live and ready for you. Dr. Snell, do you mind going to the next slide? And although right now is kind of our notification that, hey, the data dashboard is live on the website, in terms of a communication out to the public, we are launching a communication through VPS Now. I believe that's next week when the VPS Now goes out. Is that right, Chris? I wasn't sure the exact date. I thought it was next week. And where our communications team is helping craft a message around the purpose of the data dashboard, where to locate it, and how to access it. So excited that will be live. And that's what we had to share, Dr. Snell, for now. And if there's questions from from board members, we'd be happy to address some questions too.
I don't have any questions, but great work. I appreciate the ongoing communication. You guys have obviously asked for our feedback, and this isn't the first time we're hearing this. So it looks great. I'm excited for it to launch, and just thank you for all your hard work to really get the data out there that we can be transparent with our community. So thank you.
And I want to say that I really like the fact that we're kind of holding each other accountable by putting in like, expect the next update. I noticed that right away. It's like, oh, next update, November, next update. And that's terrific, because that way we're like, wait, it's already November, you know, something should happen, unless there's, you know, something. As we learned today, as we learned yesterday, every so often things don't go the way they're supposed to go, and all of a sudden you don't have electricity at your high school. So we get that things happen, but it's just nice to know that we've got a date in which we're trying for to update. And the board looked at lots of different data dashboards in lots of different school communities. And one of the things that was very frustrating was to not know when was the last time this was updated, or all of a sudden realize, boy, it hasn't been updated since 2016, but so I appreciate the effort to make sure that it's consistently updated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I want to give a shout out to, I know Brian lovingly gave a shout out to our ITS team, but this getting all of that data, coordinating all the data dates was a multi-departmental lift in our central office. It was all of our departments really working together to determine when is the right time for all of this, and ITS making it happen. So it definitely was true collaboration.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned that there, and I was thinking about the calendar that's been established, that now we got a system to where we revisit it once a month and go, okay, where are we on track with the reporting and with the uploading both to the dashboard and other needs across the system. So it feels like this has helped bring us together in a way that's not certainly informative for the board, the community, and also leveraged our teams within the system in a really positive way.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, thank you, Chris and Brian, for presenting. And now we get to go a little deeper. I don't see our students on yet, so I'm going to go, oops, sorry. Whenever you do an embedded video, it always wants to go when you click to the next slide. So we'll come back to our students, but we're going to invite Elizabeth Mikaeli to talk a little bit about that attendance indicator that Brian highlighted. And just some of the great work that's going on with that. So I'll turn it over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to share. As you saw on the dashboard, we have lots of work to do with attendance. Our first goal is to get up over that initial 60%, closer to 65% by the end of this school year. Particularly paying attention to the disparity in attendance between student groups. And so hoping to be able to reduce that by 10%. The work plan is linked there for you to look at later. But one of the things that I really want to focus on sharing with you is that previously we had looked at attendance in a little bit of a different lens in our district, really focusing punitively from a truancy perspective. And what the outcome was when we pulled data was that disproportionately we were sending students, 82% as a matter of fact, of our homeless students, our special education students, multilingual students, and students and families of color to court for non-attendance. But the outcome wasn't proving to be beneficial because our unknown and dropout rates continued to go up. Out of all of the students that had been referred previously, only 18% didn't have one or more of those indicators. Can you go to the next slide, please? Our vision for moving forward is really all these words basically say focusing on meeting our students and our families where they're at, and especially having them feel that they have a support system around them and seeing the value of education and of learning, and that they feel comfortable and safe to connect with our teams to be able to remove those barriers that are preventing them from attending instead of kind of a fear factor. Or the worries and the concerns associated with truancy. Next slide. Here is the initial goals that we have outlined in a way to make this work more culturally responsive and trauma informed through input from staff and in large part from community leaders, elders, our students, and our families. Next slide. And then this is where we're at in the progress. So there was a lot of things that had to get put in place because this is a really big shift from the way that we've been looking at attendance and student engagement previously in our district. And we're about halfway through laying the groundwork. Some of it is the work that Brian and Chris shared. This has really been a multi-departmental effort, which has been a beautiful thing, having all of us as directors be able to come together to support our students and families, because ultimately this work benefits all of our goals, because if we can't get the students there, we're not able to get them learning. And so it really goes hand in hand with the work all of us are leading. Next slide. The part that I'm particularly excited to share with you tonight is moving from truancy boards, which were once housed at court, to now a multi-departmental and multilingual student and family engagement boards. They are offered on Thursdays in partnership with the Plaza, and also in partnership with our multilingual and our special education team, as well as our synergy team, our SIS team, coming so that students and families are receiving information about attendance and student engagement and learning. But all of that is being presented in their native language with people that mirror and reflect them racially, culturally, and linguistically. And families are getting connected at that meeting to be able to begin school the following day with a soft handoff from a staff instead of just getting a card of some person that they have to contact. And then oftentimes there's a lot of anxiety around that, and the follow through wasn't super consistent. But this way, there's a friendly face and a partnership and a relationship with our teams. And regardless of what the barrier is, we have someone there to do enrollment. We have someone from special services that can help if there's any kind of special education needs. We have staff from our multilingual team who are there to help with those needs, as well as staff from our community schools program to help if there's any of those barriers connected to basic needs. So it's a one-stop shop where we are able to do all of those things. And at the same time, families are able to access the food pantry and the English classes and credit recovery support, tutoring, childcare, and we're serving dinner all at the same time. So super, super excited, and would love to see you come visit anytime that you're available. It's been beautiful work so far. We have had almost perfect attendance. And out of all of the families that we've had, we've been able to re-engage so far all of the students that we've had through this process, which is dramatically different than it was previously. Next slide. The second piece is to this work is the next kind of like paring down, or if you think of MTSS, pairing up, our weekly student and family workshops. So these family engagement workshops also take place at Harney, but they're on Mondays. And they're very small groups that are working where they need a little bit extra help, or maybe they need consistent check-ins with our team. It's also a way that our schools can refer families directly to get support. So if they're meeting with a family, they can send them on Monday night. They can tell them exactly where they're going to go and what to expect. And it's a little bit of a more intimate connection, especially for some of our refugee families and some of our newcomers, that it might be overwhelming to be in a large presentation like boards. So it's an opportunity just to get a little bit extra support. Next slide. And then I think the part that just brings joy to my heart is the student engagement coordinator meetings. Historically, this work has always been focused on secondary, and as we went through looking at the data, we really needed to be focusing this work at elementary, because the same students that were impacted in elementary have continued to be impacted middle through high school. And it looks way different than sitting down doing a Warren's assessment. It's sitting and coloring and becoming their buddy at recess. And through that, giving them something to look forward to, but also having those informal conversations to see what the worries and concerns are and how we can make school better and feel more welcoming for our students, but especially for our newcomers to be able to engage with somebody in their native language where it feels safe and it's not quite so scary. And we're able to ensure, that our students are excused when there's a funeral that's come up, or if there's issues with transportation and we need to be able to connect them with gas cards so that they are able to get to school. Whatever the need is, it's a lot easier in these informal conversations of spending time with students to get that information. And through that, then we're working with the families during those small student engagement workshops, and then working with the students every week. So right now we're serving our 3 elementary schools who have the most significant need. And we're serving our 2 middle schools with the most significant need. And then we're serving all of our high schools right now, our comprehensive high schools. And then as needed, then there's a referral form for the other schools. And as we get the systems going, we hope to expand the work. But for right now, that is where we're at with those pieces. And then next slide. Some of our families need daily support. And so the Multilingual Welcome Center is a space that also is a multi-departmental effort where all of us as directors have staff from our teams that are there to serve students, staff, and families from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Well, till 4 p.m. on Fridays. And they're able to come in and get all of their basic needs met. If they've come to a board or a workshop and they need extra support, it's a place where they can come, where our staff is able to communicate in English, in Spanish, in Chuquis readily, and we're able to get someone. We've also had people who have needed some Farsi interpretation, and then also our Russian Ukrainian interpretation. Much quicker than we would have been able to do historically. So it's been a great way to ensure that there's multiple access points to our department, and that we're able to meet the diverse needs of our students and families with the hope of ensuring that our students can engage in their learning without having those barriers that stand in their way to being able to have the same access as those students who maybe don't have as many barriers in their way. And that is all for now of where we are at. These are some of just the connections to the other areas in which this student attendance and engagement work also supports, because as I was saying in the beginning, so much of it is interconnected and intertwined and kind of go hand in hand with one another. It's my last slide. Are there any questions? Or comments or concerns?
No concerns, just so much great feeling after that. I mean, I wish I could be more eloquent, but I love the fact that we went from talking about the dashboard and talking about what data can give us, and then in looking at that, totally flipping everything on its head to do what our families need in order to get our kids in school. And I love how that's all connected. And I love just the joy of reconnecting these students and these families to the school district and making it a welcoming place. It sounds so easy, but we know that it's an incredibly full-time, incredibly hard job to do, because there's so much outreach that needs to happen. So thank you and everybody that worked with you. This is amazing. And also thank you for mentioning the littles, the elementary school kids, because that is where it starts. And if we can get them to come, then when they go to middle school, hopefully there'll be fewer absentees in middle
Yeah.
school that year. So wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm just impressed with how you and your team are not just taking, what is the problem, students not attending, the solution is, truancy court, get them to come, and you're realizing, okay, we need to get at the root of what the issue is, and engagement, and looking at the whole family. Where can we meet families, and younger, like engaging them at a younger age to like prevent the problem, rather than intervening once the problem is there. And so I just think it's great work, and it's exciting, and it's very positive focused versus like the negative, punishment, you're not attending, truancy court, versus how can we engage you? How can we build that sense of belonging in that community? How can we meet you where you're at? Providing access. I think it's great. I'm excited about the work and very proud of the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna jump in and say ditto. Like, this is incredibly impressive. I love hearing about how kind of we're kind of bringing all of these different programs and processes together that we've been working, like using La Plaza to help re-engage on attendance. Like, it's just this wonderful example of the wraparound services that we have created, and then just kind of utilizing them in any way and every way that we can to help students meet them wherever they're at. So this has just been wonderful to hear about. So thank you very much for, like, it's so hard. This, like Kathy's right, this is impossible. Sometimes it feels impossible, this work. So I really appreciate your efforts, and it's really encouraging to see some progress being made.
Thank you. Well, we are grateful that we have your support, and grateful that you also see how important going this direction is, because without that support, we wouldn't be able to do this great work.
Elizabeth, I was wondering if you could just describe like an experience, like you mentioned the plaza kind of brings it all together. So like dinner, you mentioned all these different things. What would a family expect if they showed up at the plaza, whether they needed services or not? What might that look like for them?
Well, I think that, in all of those, whether it's La Plaza, or it is a workshop, or it is, the board meeting, all of those things, families are greeted by people that mirror and reflect them culturally, racially, linguistically. And we also have student leaders that are there, which helps make it not quite so intimidating, and other families who have benefited who they can share. And so getting greeted, everyone has a meal together, which is a great way to break bread, and is so culturally respectful of where so many of our families come from. And it just kind of creates that comfort. And then breaking out into different groups. Some families are going to go to their English lessons. The kids can go to childcare, where there's a whole lesson plan on different cultures, and our meals are focused on different cultures. Hilda's amazing at setting all of that up. And if there's kids that need credit recovery or tutoring, they can be doing that, or they can go with their parents to the English classes to help get credit. Or they could be going to the student engagement boards, or the workshops, learning more about the resources and supports that are there to help them engage. And then after that presentation, they basically are paired with staff who, again, speak the same language that they speak. And they're able to get re-enrolled. They're able in various different programs. Our Grad Alliance is one of our partners that helps with our Open Doors, and our credit retrieval program, and they're there on site. School counselors are there on site. Our mental health clinicians are there to help connect to resources. So literally whatever they have shared in those meetings, we're able to get them connected. The FCRCs are rotating through, so they're there to help connect with those basic needs. All of us have our departments there, so that when the student leaves, they know, and the family, who they're going to meet at which building or program, that next morning. And then also because our team is in the buildings, especially with our secondary kids, they continuously see those people. So it's not like someone that just like shows up to be like, you're not going to school, but it's someone that continues to meet with them. Mahoney's and Dutch Brothers and a couple of other organizations, as well as the foundation, have been super gracious in helping us to do $5 gift cards and incentives when the students meet their goals. So they feel like almost like they have like a case manager in a sense. So there's just one other person. So when things do get a little bumpy in the beginning, going back into a school, they have someone to be able to check in with and continue to help them not get back into the same space that they were in, or their families, like I said, could go to the engagement workshops on Mondays if they need additional support as well.
Thank you for just kind of bringing that further to life. And the other piece I'd wonder if you could comment on is you all as directors and the varied advisories that you run are operating that a little differently this year too. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, so we all were running advisories in isolation, and as directors, we've really tried to come together. We all really like to work together, and are very aligned in the direction that we're going. So it's very beneficial in a lot of ways. But we are combining our family advisories. So we've all shared our families who have been part of the advisory work that we've done in our own departments to come together, and monthly we're doing advisories together through La Plaza. So there's a huge increase in the families we've reached out. The last time we met, it was over 100 families that have communicated that they want to be involved, and we solicited kind of what parts they are most interested in. So based on what their interests are, they can do those breakout sessions. So again, we'll come together and have our meal. The kids have childcare. Families don't have to worry about what they're going to do for dinner. They can come, and we'll all be together for the main presentation, and then break out into our departments to get just additional feedback from families about the different work that we're doing in our individual departments, or sometimes, that we're doing collaboratively between one or two departments, depending on which month and what the theme is that we're presenting. But yeah, it's great to be able to all come together.
This is so much more than just about attendance. I mean, it's, I know that's what the heading is under, but this is about family and community empowerment and how much that impacts how our students feel about coming to school. And so they come, but it's also how our families feel about being in our community and being a part of our community, which helps impact what our schools choose to do. It's this amazing scenario that really informs and enhances everything we do in our schools. You're gonna make me cry. It's amazing. Thank you
Well,
so
and
much. Go ahead.
many of our families, it's been pretty emotional, when they leave, and even some of the students, like just feeling like, like,
Yep.
thank you, like just so appreciative and so grateful. Yeah, it's very humbling.
In that model that Elizabeth described, that was presented back to me in our advisory structure. And so, like for the cell phone policy, there'll be an opportunity for everybody to come together, share a meal, and then they'll break out in groups and then be able to give input on what they think should happen. Similarly, we've been talking about the role of law enforcement, and we know that we all have concerns about safety, and we all want to make sure that school feels safe for everyone. And so, just talking about what that could look like. So we will be getting input from those groups to inform you as some of the really complex, difficult decisions that you all have. Know that these are the kinds of experiences that we feel like you're going to get some real authentic input because of the trust that Elizabeth and her team and colleagues have developed with the family. So.
I think it's also really exciting. We have really diverse group of families. So it's not just the families that show up to all of the things, but a lot of the voices that haven't been present historically are able to be present, which is just amazing.
Elizabeth, we'll let you off now. Good job. Thank you for sharing with us. And I'm looking at our participants. We have one of our student advisors, but we're still waiting on one other. So I think we're going to move into the next presentation, and I'll just be monitoring to see when Christian shows up, is able to. He's got a cross-country meet. So, and welcome Janelle Ephraim, Executive Director, to share a little bit about our next goal area. And I'll get the slides up for you, Janelle, and turn it over to you.
All right. All right, thank you. Thank you. And so good evening, board. I appreciate the opportunity that you're giving me to come and share about this particular goal area, the student-centered experience, goal 1. And you'll see that the discipline work is embedded within that goal area. So what I have for you presently is the 2-year vision. And really our 2-year vision is around just continuing the work and building on the progress that we've made, prioritizing professional learning, refining our structures, and strengthening meaningful partnerships within our students, families, and the broader community. Next slide, please. So as we review the work plan goals, you'll see that our intentional focus is on increasing access for underserved students, strengthening supports for students and families through key transitions, ensuring clear and equitable student behavioral outcomes. And so this evening, I really want to focus on, like I said earlier, is the discipline goal, and that's ensuring student behavioral expectations are clear and discipline outcomes are equitable. And we'll spend some time talking about the progress we've made the first 30 days in this particular goal area, as well as some supports that we have in place as a system. And you heard some of the supports from Elizabeth as well. Next slide, please. So before I get into the specifics about our goal, I really want to share the updated measurable outcomes with you. These are new outcomes that from this school year. We did make progress on the outcomes of the plan from the previous year. But looking at this year, so by 2025, we hope to increase the percentage of students reporting a sense of belonging. This goal should look familiar to you. We want to specifically focus on targeting 70% of our elementary, 45% of our middle school, and 44% of our high school students. And we're going to measure this specifically looking at how students report their feeling valued within their school communities. And this will be measured using Panorama. You'll be able to track that using the dashboard that Chris and Brian shared with you previously. So additionally, we want to look at student attendance and aiming to increase the percentage of students attending 90% of the time and reducing disproportionality. Next slide, please. The next 3 measurable outcomes really, the first 2 focus on discipline and restorative practices. Again, these should look familiar. We want to decrease the exclusionary discipline and increase the restorative practices that we use in our system in response to school discipline. We also want to measure belonging, or excuse me, we hope to increase sense of belonging and measure it by looking at the number of seniors who participate in our exit interviews. Next slide. So the data that I'm going to talk about here is really focusing on looking at the first 30 days of the school year, and it's in comparison to the first 30 days of last school year. So what our data tells us is that there's a reduction in exclusionary risk and missed school days per 100 students. I just want to give you a refresher. Exclusionary risk looks at the percentage of students who've been subjected to exclusionary discipline at least one time during the school year or during the first 30 days. And the days of exclusion per 100 students is really the total number of days missed when you're looking at it for every 100 students. And so these are just ways that we can compare student groups or compare, exclusion across student groups. So in our comparison data, it shows that we have a reduction in the number of days missed for per 100 students for our Hispanic, like Latinx and Asian students. It shows that we're narrowing the gap in exclusion risk when comparing our Black and African American and Pacific Islander students with all student groups as a whole. Our data also shows that we are narrowing the gap between students receiving special education services and those who are not receiving services. Next slide. We've seen a pretty significant improvement for our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students, and the gap in missed school days has reduced dramatically. While some areas, of course, such as our students who are experiencing homelessness, we still need to focus our attention. We are committed to that. I do want to talk a little bit about ways that we are focusing on improving some of those outcomes for students. Next slide. Okay, and so the work behind our discipline goal is aligned with other goals, particularly strengthening access to necessary supports for each of our students. And so I'd like to share these supplemental supports. And really these supports are coupled with the very important and intentional work that's happening in our classroom for students with our teachers. But it is all of these things work together to show improvement. Some of these supports includes things like our restorative practices work. You heard from one of our RJ coaches earlier today or this evening. Other supports are culturally relevant supports like our Pacific Islander clubs, our Black student groups, and parent engagement opportunities. Again, those are things that you heard some about in previous presentations. So just knowing, well, all these programs provide intentional supports for our students, I really want to share a little more about the work around restorative practices and share a highlight from one of our middle schools. So at a particular middle school, one of our RJ coaches received a message that one student had told another to go back to their country. Okay, and the coach went to speak with the student who was harmed and asked the student to join them in their office for a conversation. The student shared the story from class about when she was harmed. And when asked how she felt and how she wanted it addressed, she said that she really, it hurt her because of the experience that she had was so traumatic about escaping the war-torn country where she was persecuted. And so the student went on to share that she didn't want to go back to her native country, because she believed that those who were persecuting her would eventually murder her and her family. She explained that the harmful statement made by the other student really frightened her. And so while we would have historically addressed this particular situation from a punitive perspective by excluding the aggressor and arranging for a potentially forced apology, the coach instead, aligned with the hate and bias protocol, chose to ask the student, what should we do to make things right for you? And the student responded by stating that she just wanted a chance to sit with the other student who used the harmful language and explain the impact that statement had on her. The student, actually, her words were, I just want him to understand why it scared me so much. So when the coach and admin team brought the students together, the student that was harmed was able to share her experience, and the other student listened carefully. The student was moved by her story and apologized on his own. The student who was harmed happily accepted. The nice thing is both students left the situation stronger than how they started, because they haven't had any additional issues. The restorative coach is reporting that he's deeply grateful for the lens of being able to use RJ, or restorative justice practices, in the work, and having the permission to use RJ to resolve conflicts, because really what's happening is students are receiving healing, students are less likely to be excluded, and even more importantly, their knowledge is being expanded by learning from their experiences. Um, yeah. The next slide. Okay, thank you. So some other ways that our discipline work connects to strengthening access is our HOPE program. And our HOPE program follows the guidelines of, the McKinney-Vento in supporting stability and connection to schools for students who are experiencing homeless. Our mental health and wellness coordinators, along with our school-based clinicians, one who you also heard from tonight, and substance use prevention programs play a real vital role in helping to address the root causes of behaviors that could lead to exclusionary discipline in our system. And these programs are really helping to make sure our students are able to stay engaged. I just spoke to a few programs that really highlight this work. Just know that as we move forward, we really want to focus our attention on how our students are doing. We'll continue to track data, share it with you, identify areas of improvement, as well as celebrate our success. Any questions that you have for me? Okay.
Thank you so much, Jill. And that story, I feel like we've gone from positive emotional to positive emotional. That story was so powerful because, in addition to being healed, they were also empowered. Again, that word, it means a lot, and it just adds to the sense of belonging. And that's a great story. I love it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for allowing us to do the work and supporting the work for kids.
Thank you, Janelle. We're gonna shift because I see that Christian and Samuel are both on now. Christian, how was the cross country meet?
The meet was good. It was pretty cold, but I'd say the team overall did well.
Good. And thank you for joining us. And Samuel, thank you for waiting. I know you've been on for a bit. I'm going to pull up the slide from our last meeting, but I'll just invite you to share kind of your perspective on kind of what we've been doing in student advisory. And also, I think the board is always interested in kind of why do you give your time in this way? So I'll turn it over to you both, and I'll pull that slide up for you while you share.
All right. So the last student advisory meeting was on October 9th. We did a lot of things at the meeting. I'll take a look at what we did. We first off toured the Fort Vancouver High School, get an idea of a school that's kind of alien to us. We discussed belonging interventions, which are kind of group meetings that can be implemented at each school, an interactive presentation given to students around the beginning of the year, focusing on transitional grades like 6th and 9th, that reinforces the idea that most students feel uncertain about their belonging and it passes with time. And we're kind of building the bridge between older students at the school and newer students who may not feel like they belong as much. We also went through panorama spring data from each school and reviewed the cell phone policy survey data. Anything to add, Christian?
No, nothing much. We did exactly what you said. So yeah. Yeah, we basically went over updates on that, and I toured the school. I don't know if you mentioned that. You probably did. Yeah. That's it.
Can you, both of you, this is your second year, I think, in student advisory. And so maybe start with you, Christian. Like, tell us a little about the experience. And you're both kind of stepping into even more leadership roles this year with advisory. So just tell us a little about your journey. And then also, just a little about you too, the school that you do attend, your grade, some of the things that you're interested in. So Christian, let's start with you.
All right. Well, I joined student advisory about a year ago because during the summer, the vice president, the vice president mentioned it to me. He was like, "Hey, there's this group called student advisory. We look to improve belonging throughout the school district, and I think it'd be a really good idea if you came." Now, first, I wasn't sure because I was involved in a lot of things, but I found it really welcoming and very relaxed because we all just met each month to go over the panorama survey and to look at the statistics of how how many kids felt they belong and to give our feedback. And I just overall had a very good experience along with the in-person meetings we had rotating throughout the schools in the district. Yeah, it always put me in the mindset to make an impact beyond myself and to not basically to just get out of my comfort zone and to find ways to improve the school that I hadn't thought of before and that I didn't think I would enjoy until I actually tried it. And as for my personal interests and activities, I do two sports, cross country and swimming. And for clubs, I'm on DECA, which is a business and entrepreneurship related program. The Black Student Union, basically to improve Black representation and culture and to share that with the school, and student advisory, which we all know. Yeah, I think that's a good rundown of me and the program I've been a part of, student advisory.
Thank you, Christian. And you're a senior at Hudson's Bay this year, correct?
Yes, I'm a senior. I just had my last cross country meet for the season, actually. So now I'm done, which is crazy.
Sam, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. This is actually my first year in student advisory. Last year, I met with the board a few times with a group of students who had concerns about the budget cuts, which was big news last year. And through that, I got the opportunity from my principal to join the student advisory. I've been to both meetings this year, and each time was a great opportunity to reflect on data about student belonging and how we can increase it in our own schools with our own school programs. I do know that belonging interventions are one of them, or kind of just sit down and talk groups over food. I know that me and other advisory members at my school are organizing one next month. I work closely with our school's student equity team as well to kind of increase sense of belonging at my school. And it's a good opportunity to voice student concerns and get in touch with other people around the district. In terms of my own interests, I go to VSIA and I'm in the jazz band. I'm a pianist. And I'm wearing this because I have a concert in about 20 minutes that I'm going to walk down to first of the year. So that's pretty fun. Outside of that, I work with a county organization called Teens for Tomorrow that focuses on youth substance use prevention. Yesterday, I actually gave a speech at the city council meeting to celebrate the proclamation of Red Ribbon Week, a substance use awareness week. But other than that, my interests are just my own academics and music. And I'm glad to be a part of student advisory this year. It's been really great.
Thank you, Sam. I forgot that this was your first year. You've been so active, so I apologize about that. It seems like that we've worked together for a little bit of time now. So I would say that Sam and Christian are exceptional, but everybody on student advisory is really exceptional. And I think they represent all of our larger student population, that we have kids that are really committed to each other and to our community and it's so inspiring to get a part of, to be with them. So I'll see. I know that Sam, you've got to leave pretty quickly, so we'll see if there's any board questions quickly before we send you off to your concert.
I just want to say thank you both for squeezing us in between all of the other things that you have had to do today. Christian, I hope your last cross country was enjoyable, albeit cold. And Sam, I hope that your first concert of the year is stunning. I'm sure it will be. But thank you guys for squeezing us in there.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm gonna say, like, if you need to leave, Sam, feel free. I'm gonna actually show you the belonging intervention video that the staff advice or student advisory created in our last meeting. And so Ian, our wonderful video production person, came, and while we were doing the meeting, people would go out if they felt like they wanted to be a part of the interview and contributed, and then Ian turned it into this. And so this is about a 4-minute video that the goal is that every every high school will be able to use this in some way. And our next student advisor, we're planning and giving some direction around how to use that. So I'll go ahead and play this, and then we'll transition to our next speaker.
Belonging means that you feel welcomed into a community and you feel like you're a part of it.
A place where you can be yourself and have like basically no judgment against you.
A space that you feel safe and overall a sense of connection within that school or place.
I would say my freshman year of high school was the first time where I ever realized that I am not like everybody else that's around me. I grew up in California and I went to schools and it was a predominantly African American student body, and the transition into Washington, there's a predominantly white student body at my school, and so I'm kind of unfamiliar with the way people like act and they talk. And I kind of felt very out of place, not just because of my skin color, but just everyone was different. Each and everybody, like, it wasn't a group of them all being the same. Everyone was different, and I didn't know where I should go or who I should talk to.
I have a lot of social anxiety, and so it took me a while to figure out where I belonged.
It felt like a bummer almost. It felt sad. Sometimes it felt like, oh man, I wish I wasn't in this position. I wish that I could, fit in sometimes. And I think that's something that a lot of kids that were, or maybe you're currently feeling the same way or have had feelings of that can relate to, is that sometimes you feel like it might be you versus the school or you versus the world, even if you want to compare it to that level.
It can just make you feel like if I wasn't here at school, most people probably would not care, or at least would not say anything. And it just makes you feel like, I could be anywhere else. Maybe I should just not go to school. I don't really enjoy it.
It sounds like really stupid, but really what you do have to do is go do stuff, because I've struggled with anxiety and depression. It really don't help sitting in my room just crying. What helps is going and doing things and talking to people.
I think I just reached out and I packed myself into as many social things as I could so I could make those connections and make sure I had someone there for me.
Keeping in mind that there are some people who are very friendly and some people who are not, and not every interaction that you may have with someone may be great, some may be amazing, and some may be not so good, but to not be so held down by it and just think on the positive, bright side that everything happens for a reason and it's gonna get better eventually.
Simply moving with kindness, as corny as it sounds, it opens a way to other people, just letting them know that you have good intentions and that you want to move forward with them and build a connection with them helps me take that step forward.
Just like having one person I knew and then talking to other people with that person, so having the confidence to talk to more people, which is also what I try to do when there's more group events, have someone be in pairs and then go out so you have someone you can be confident with and like bounce off of each other.
Maybe just like tell someone or like an adult that is supportive. They're like, I'm having trouble fitting in. I don't really know what to do. Or to also try to engage with people that you know somewhat well and see if you can get to know them even more.
If there's like an activity or a friend maybe you wish you could have made that maybe I didn't make back then, I would have just told my younger self, you know what? Go out there and do it, because right now it's not going to matter. It won't really matter after you graduate high school, after maybe you finish college. Just give it a shot and be you.
You shouldn't have to change yourself to get friends and feel like you belong. Like, you should be able to be yourself without feeling like you don't belong. If someone's not right for you, or if something's not right for you, a school, a club, person, let it go, I guess. Make sure that no matter what, you put yourself on top, but don't be selfish about it.
There's definitely been like times where I felt like I would never find my place, but it's definitely out there somewhere. Like, if you are feeling like, if you're in that state where you feel like you're alone and like you can't find anywhere to go, there's definitely a place.
Belonging it's a very human nature characteristic. It's in all of us. And with it being something that is shared among all humans, it means that everybody can experience what it means to belong.
Pretty impressive, huh? Yeah, we're really excited to see how this could get used in schools. And like when I saw that video, because all I saw was the kids just leaving the room. And so Christian would go out and get interviewed for 5 minutes and then come back in. And then when I saw the full video, I was like, wow, really well done. And so, our hope, the students' hope was that as a ninth grader sitting in a classroom sees that one, they maybe see themselves in it, and then they maybe take one of the nuggets of wisdom that our students shared and feel connected. So super excited about that work. Any other questions or comments for student advisory? Okay, Lucy. Oh, Tracy, did I see you unmute? Or okay.
I was just going to say thank you to, I know Sam left already, but Christian, thank you for being here and participating in that video. It was great.
Of course, it was very fun to participate in.
Okay, I am gonna get Lucy ready here. Lucy, I'll turn it over to you. I'm going back to the slides since we went backwards, so bear with me for a second here, but I'll turn it over to you and we will learn a little bit about our goals related to multilingual learners.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, everybody. And okay, that's kind of hard to follow. Okay, so, but you've heard about the dashboard and families and students, and I thought I would just talk a little bit about our multilingual students and just how teachers and instruction and how it all fits our goals, and just a little bit about that. But before we get started, just wanted to show you how many multilingual students we have right now and just the increase that we have over the past 4 years. Just a little way we can just get started. Next. And so in thinking about what I wanted to share with you, I thought I could share with you a little bit about the 7 steps and how that really impacts student learning, student achievement, and that student experience that we're hoping all our multilingual students have. And actually, we're hoping that all our students have, right? This opportunity to engage in classroom discussions, regardless of how much English students have at that moment, and how we can all help our kids reach those goals of just increasing their academic vocabulary throughout our system. So we've trained in a number of schools, Fort, Geyser, McLaughlin. I kind of asterisk Walnut Grove because we can go back to that. We've also trained instructional coaches and language development specialists and a few others. And we've trained teachers. Teachers have the opportunity to go to a training in the summer in their own time after school. And we had 30 slots for elementary teachers and 30 slots for secondary, and they were all full. And that's a click. So when you have time, you can go in if you want to get more in depth on the 7 steps. I asked Walnut Grove because they were one of the first schools that we started training, and they're actually working with Dr. Salva, who is one of the trainers on the 7 steps, and she goes in and helps model lessons and just helps advise teams. Next. And so we'll be conducting a book study with her. We'll continue. We hope that Walnut Grove becomes a kind of like a demo site with the 7 steps, and we'll have continued professional development throughout the year. One of the things about Walnut Grove is just how they've embraced having Dr. Salva come in. She works with teams, like I mentioned before, but one of the ways she's been able to impact is she'll go in and she will just teach a lesson. She doesn't know the students. And one thing that was very impactful was when she had the teachers write down the students that were multilingual students, write down the students that were newcomers, and then she helped model those lessons. And one of the teachers had stated, well, I know that this student is not going to speak because she doesn't speak in class. And yet when she was able to help the student facilitate their English skills with a non-threatening kind of instruction, and with scaffolds and differentiation and opportunities to practice language with their peers, she was able to speak, and the teacher was, it was really incredible to see the teacher say, oh my gosh, I did not know. But yet when we facilitate opportunities to have kids speak in structured sentences, in ways where they can help each other, it really is powerful. And it was really powerful to be part of that professional development. And I think it started that ball of we want more. And I realized that teachers want more, and that instruction in language it's difficult. It doesn't happen overnight, but we continue looking at language instruction as needed throughout the day, not just in, like, for example, a pullout, but that content teachers really will are responsible, but yet they need help and support in doing this throughout the day. We hope that this will impact our goals. Next. And I put in this video so that when you have time, you can just see what one of the strategies is, QSSA, and how the teachers, how they've planned, how they've taught it, a team that from an instructional coach, a language development specialist, and a lab teacher, how they've sat down and been able to take these steps and strategies and have been able to plan together, because it's really powerful when you can do it in a team and you support each other and they support the classroom teacher. Next. And of course, then this will impact our goals, right? We want to increase our exit rate. Currently, it's at 4.9, and we really want to double it. We want to be sure that with these strategies, we will help kids just that little step forward into meeting that goal of exiting through the WIDA access. So we want to double it 10%, and hopefully we'll get there with these strategies. Next. And we want to reduce the number of our long-term learners. We have over 1,500 in our system right now. These kids have been in the U.S. system 6 years or more, and that's what OSPI does. That's how they categorize a long-term learner. So through these strategies, sometimes kids just need that opportunity to practice language and practice it in a daily academic setting. And we hope that by doing this, we can just create those sentence frames, sentence stems throughout the day, and that teachers can use this in planning. And it's not as difficult as we think it is. It's just providing structures for teachers, simple structures and simple strategies. Next. And then that will in turn help us with our graduation rate, which is the ultimate goal, right? To get kids across that finish line at the end of the high school journey with proficiency and with the ability to go out and do whatever they want. And that when they talk about their academic language and their vocabulary, it is they have it fluently enough that they can go out there and reach whatever goal they want, either go to the university, go to a trade class, or go into the work environment. But yet we've been able to offer them those opportunities to increase their oral language. And eventually it goes into reading and writing and so forth. So next. And this all ties to that big idea that we are all mutually responsible for contributing to language development and academic success of multilingual learners. And that is why these 7 steps are just really easy. I mean, it's not easy, but they're quick, and they give teachers that ability to be able to start thinking about how can we impact instruction for our multilingual learners. And how can we contribute to their experience, their positive experience? Because once they engage, once they feel part of the classroom, it helps with all of the work that we're doing in terms of sense of belonging with the previous video, and increasing their families' participation in school. And so that piece of instruction is just so vital. Next, I think that is it. Are there any questions? I can talk more about this. I can talk all night. But I really hope that you are able to, when you have time, I know it's been kind of a long night, but when you have time, if you can watch that QSSA video, it's question, STEM, and share, and just that little bit of the process of what the teacher does to just elicit responses from all students. Whether it's a complete sentence, 2 words, but yet one word builds upon another word, builds upon another word throughout if we do this for 180 days, can you imagine how much language is learned?
Lucy, I love your passion for multilingual learners. I love how excited you get. You remind me of me when I talk about early childhood neuroscience. It's just like, I could talk about this all day, and I could talk about this at this level of engagement. And I just am so thankful that you are leading this, because it's just contagious for you to be the one telling teachers, look at what we can do, and telling the coaches, look what we can do, and look at how exciting this is. I don't know how they could not want to step right in and do it for 180 days. I want to do it, and I'm not even in a classroom right now.
Thank you. I mean, I don't want to underscore the fact that it's hard work. It's difficult, and it's our kids come with so many different issues at times. But yet, if we give them another word and another word, that helps increase just their success and their sense of that they can fit into this new world that they've been brought into.
Well, especially since not all of our students are in dual language classrooms. And not only that, but we also have students who are multilingual with their second language not being Spanish, or their first language not being Spanish. So these are strategies that work for all multilingual students, whether they're in a dual language program or not.
That's why Walnut Grove was actually chosen. I mean, they have a high number of multilingual learners, but it's not one set language that is dominant. So giving these strategies so that work with all students, that was kind of the thought process on that.
Thank you.
Lucy, a week from tonight is kind of a big night. We have a dedication. Do you want to
Yes.
speak a little bit about that?
Yes, we will have our dedication of RBG, our first, of course, everybody knows the first dual language class, whole school in Vancouver Public Schools. When I go and speak to other people across the state, you know, it's just, it's that we are so fortunate that we have a board and a superintendent and that has been so supportive of the work of dual language. I just saw Superintendent Reichel speak last weekend, and his number one topic again was dual language. And so, and the possibilities we give children with languages. And so I hope that you can all come and just participate in this wonderful endeavor that we've launched, and it's because of you. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you had a big part in that too as well, Louise.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Thank you.
Lucy, I know, watching a video of a lesson on a video Zoom isn't easy, but is there a couple of things that you would want to highlight just around instructional practices in general, from your time as a principal and a teacher into seeing and supporting the work in this way?
Yeah. Well, you know, talking in this world of multilingual learners, I really want to highlight the fact that first of all, I keep saying this, but developing language does not happen over one day or even a year. If we even look at how we develop language, it takes years. And at times it's hard to be patient. But if we see these small gains day by day, it accumulates. And so really looking at instructional practices that offer kids the opportunity to speak every day, to have access to core content, to be able to write about what they've been able to say or draw if they don't know the word, giving them access to the new technology that will help them have access to content, right? So we're really fortunate that we're having a lot more technology that can support the work. A lot of the AI work can support students learning. But the biggest piece, I think, is that collaboration that we have amongst our specialists and the collaboration that we have amongst our teachers so that they can sit down and talk about what are best practices in meeting the needs of our multilingual learners and how can we look at data to support where we're wanting our kids to go, and really sitting and talking about how we can achieve that together. Also, really having a robust MTSS process really helps because then we will reduce over-identification of our multilingual learners. It's not, it's just a process that will help teachers understand, is it a language issue or is it truly something that where they do need extra help through an IEP and so forth. I can talk a lot about this.
Thank you, Lucy. No, that's I think it's really helpful. And you noted too AI and just the ability, I think now versus when I know I've played around with AI just from the standpoint of a former math teacher and putting lessons into different languages and having the ability to do that much more rapidly than we did in the past. And so I think if we can continue to solidify our own instructional practices and then take advantage of some of those new tools, that there's huge opportunities for us.
Speaking of that, I was just subbing at a school in another school district, and the teacher, fourth grade, and the teacher had native language math pages that she had created, probably using AI for the students. So, you know, we talked through things, and then they had their own pages, which was fabulous. It was the first time I had seen that, not in a dual language room. It was terrific.
you can also bring up pictures of a cell or photosynthesis, and you have the visual, and students can reference the visual through AI and through our all the technology that is starting to come out. So really what we can focus on is enhancing the language and learning the language while students have access to everything that technology is now being able to offer little by little.
Any other questions or comments for Lucy? All right, thank you, Lucy, so much. So we are at the end now. We had student staff advisory report, dashboard launch, and 3 student-centered experience goal areas tonight with attendance, student discipline, and multilingual learner. So off to a good start, lots of work to go, but just really proud of the staff and how hard they're working to support our students, especially given, that we're doing it with less staff as a result of the reduction. So I want to acknowledge all the hard work that everybody's doing.
Yes, and I want to second that. It is not easy under normal circumstances, under circumstances where we have fewer staff members, it's even more so. But not only the hard work that everyone that presented tonight has put forth, but the joy that they've done that work with is really inspiring. And I feel very lucky that I am on a board for this school district, because we have such passionate people that do this work on behalf of our kids and our families.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're not together next week. We have the RBG dedication. And then I think there's a gap. And then we have a board meeting second week in November, I think, is our next meeting. So, and that meeting is where you will consider a resolution for the renewal of the capital technology levy. So an important one coming up. So other than that, that's all we have tonight. So thank you.
All right. So I will hereby adjourn the meeting. Oh, wait. Director Smith or Director Barrows, do you have anything you'd like to say or add? Okay, then I will hereby adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.